Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Lightning Round. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. It is time for myself, Kevin Tompkins, Mr. Gary Haddow, king of the Boomer Energy tonight, Mr. Andrew Cooper, and of course, our good friend, our compadre, the Wisconsin strummer himself, Mr. Jake Trowbridge.
That's me.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
That's me. We need one of those. It's Quagmire. That's me.
From Boston.
Gentlemen, we ready to talk some NFC North tonight?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Get in there.
Sorry, that's my in groove voice where I'm really feeling it, and I'm feeling this conversation already before we've even gotten out of the gate.
Let's go.
That's how we do it here.
It's always a good side. Jake, why don't you tell us what you are up to in the fantasy football space lately? Because you're doing some good things there. Let's put yourself out there in the internet land.
God, it's so embarrassing.
God damn it, I know.
Yeah, I'm doing some podcasting, drinking and talking fantasy football. Maybe you heard of it. Ball Blast Fantasy Football Podcast. Maybe you heard of that. And then I'm just doofing around. I'm just literally doofing around on Twitter as my third sort of exercise in quote unquote fantasy football.
That's the most important part, though, is it not? Like
the doofing?
Doofing on Twitter is the number one most important part of this job.
Yeah, I do agree with you 100% there. If it weren't for the doofing, I wouldn't be around. Straight out.
Drinking and doofing. That's a spinoff podcast.
Third podcast coming to you in July, probably.
I will allow it. Before we hop into our NFC North stuff, make sure that you are subscribed to us on YouTube as well as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, anywhere that you get your podcasts. Also, we have a partnership with UNDERDOG Fantasy. So if you are signing up, you will get $25 for free if you use code LIGHTNING at sign up when you make your first deposit. And also, our friends at Viridian Global now have Scott Fishbowl shirts for Scott Fishbowl 11, which, by the way, 4 days, 12 hours until drafts are live. If you want to get in on the shirts and the festivities, this one's from RotoWear, but you can also get them on Viridian Global. Use code Lightning Round to get 25% off of your purchase. Gentlemen, let's talk some NFC North, shall we?
Let's do
Not
it.
everybody at once.
We shall. No, we shall. I'm sorry. I was late.
Yes.
Our nods are very loud.
Our nods are very loud. Well, let's get this shit out of the way. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. I guess. So let's talk about the quarterback because they got a brand new shiny toy in the driveway. Maybe a little bit of a midlife crisis for Orion Pace. They got that Corvette named Justin Fields in the driveway. Jake, I'll ask you first. When do you think he starts his first game? You think they're really going to trot out Andy Dalton in week one?
Look, if this was a rationally coached team, no, there's no chance you start Andy Dalton week one. Right. But that's exactly the deal. Like we talk about coaching fallacies, I think a lot, or like rational coaching fallacies. And you just expect that they're always going to do the wisest thing for their franchise. And you can't do that. You cannot do that in this instance. So, yeah, I think it would be the smart move to start Justin Fields week one. I also think it would have been the smart move to not talk down about your rookie quarterback that you just drafted in favor of coddling Andy Dalton, the crafty veteran that you signed for a year. But they're already past that point. The words have come out now from Nagy's mouth. We're like, well, I don't really trust this Justin Fields guy that we happen to draft super high. So, like, I still don't think that Dalton starts more than a couple of games. But it really seems like week one is going to be Dalton. Whether it's even for the full game or not, it doesn't matter. I don't think Fields starts week one. But aside from that, I think maybe a couple of games max for Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Fields at least toting the company line. If you've seen anything he said where he's like, oh, yeah, the game plan is for me to not play and you got to stick with the team and what the plan is. I mean, nice of him to say that. And obviously that's what the coach wants to hear. And I'm sure the coach has already told him, hey, by the way, like once we switch to you, it's all you and it's going to happen. So it's easy for him to be like, oh yeah, let him have his start or whatever. But I mean, I'm right with you on that. Like, I don't even know why. I guess they didn't know for sure they were going to get Fields. So maybe they were planning on a backup plan or something like that. But I mean, Dalton, we've seen what he can do, and it's not great. So, I mean, to start the season, we'll see it. But I think Fields is going to take that over pretty quickly.
I can't help but wonder if Ryan Pace and his job being on the line, Nagy's being on the line, like, are they – like, does that weigh? I mean, it has to weigh into the decisions that they make, but I mean, do they just start whoever's best? No. Or do they say, oh, well, we wanted to go with Dalton to give Justin Fields time and then wait and wait and wait? Because technically, like, if you waited until like game 9 and you put him in, they can be like, well, he only had half a season, but like he progressed, he got better. It's like, well, he's a rookie. Like, of course he got better game over game. Like, he hasn't played in the NFL before. I can't trust that front office whatsoever to make any decisions.
I hear you, and I'm looking at the schedule right now. So they play the Rams week 1. I mean, you can just maybe trot out Dalton to kind of be the sacrificial lamb for Aaron Donald, and then they get to play the Bengals at home. Put them out there week 2. They got to play the Browns next week, but they also had the Lions at the Raiders, and then Sunday, October 17th, versus the Packers. I might be going to that game, so that'd be fun. But yeah, so maybe not week 1, but maybe they will see what they need to see in Andy Dalton to be like, all right, Justin Fields, get your ass on in there. I have him pretty aggressively ranked. I have him as my QB 15 because I believe that he gets in there much earlier than people think with the draft capital that they did put into Fields, with jobs potentially on the line. I think, Nagy and Pace may have bought themselves another year or 2 with Justin Fields to kind of see, what they've got, what they can build. And if he can take that rocket ship, up and off, great. But, Fields has all the tools. Maybe does he get bogged down by the front office and coaching and whatever? We'll see. But you got to get him out there.
QB 15, that's spicy. Like, I have to imagine you have him for over 400 rushing yards or something if you're willing to go that high. Assuming, because you just even said like he's not going to play potentially, 15s. I
mean, Jalen Hurts almost. Jalen Hurts almost had what 500. I don't know what his total was. I think like 550 in basically 4 games. I mean, I don't know if he has. I don't know if he's going to be on that clip certainly, but I think 500 yards is certainly a nice baseline for him if he's going to play 14, 15 games.
Fair. I mean, it just 15 sounds high, but. Coop, you're muted.
Still muted.
I'm just kidding. So yeah, there we go. But I was gonna say when you look at the setup, at least, right? And as far as rookies go, like Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace have had multiple years now to turn this roster over and put the pieces in place to try and at least do their best to recreate that Chiefs offense, right? So they have Allen Robinson, who's like an upgrade on Sammy Watkins. They got rid of Jordan Howard, who's not an every down back. They brought in David Montgomery, so they at least have a guy that can play every down. They also have another versatile back. They tried Gabriel Davis at the Tyreek Hill role, didn't work out. Now they're trying Darnell Mooney. They even have 2 tight ends that can potentially play the slot, like Travis Kelce, not as well, but they've lined up in the slot. Like that offense is set the way he wants it to be, and now is his chance to like try and recreate that offense, right? So it's like Dalton, Fields. If it doesn't work, Nagy's probably out. If you look at like the Jets, they just took over that team. I mean, Robert Saleh is a guy that runs a 3-4, and they ran a 4-3. They're just starting to turn it over. That's going to be a mess. So at least you can say for Fields and for Trey Lance that if they do get in there, they're joining a complete offense rather than like Trevor Lawrence, which is joining an absolute like circus. You know what I mean? Like, it's all over the place. Tebow is running around so at least that he's joining a team that's ready to run that offense,
So then, Jake, question for you would be Allen Robinson. Who is better for him, Dalton or Fields? solely for Robinson.
Yeah, there's no way that I can look at Andy Dalton and say that he is better for any specific weapon on any specific team than Justin Fields would be. And I realize that we haven't seen Justin Fields compete against NFL teams yet, but we've seen Andy Dalton, and we've seen I don't think it's as unpretty as people like to make it out to be sometimes. Like, I think he was fine, especially for his weapons. I mean, AJ Green, when he was there, yeah, he made AJ Green super relevant. I think AJ Green could have been a lot more relevant with the Justin Fields, though. And that's kind of the same barometer for Robinson, right? Like, Robinson has consistently been a top 12 or around there kind of guy for fantasy, but he needs that ignition switch. And that's not Dalton. That is 100% Fields. Let Fields even run it a little bit more and take away some of those targets. It's still going to be Fields 100%, giving Robinson that top 5 upside that Dalton doesn't give him.
Fair enough. Can't
Not gonna lie, Jake, you said unpretty, and I was waiting for a TLC reference there, but
it was so close to. I almost just wanted to go over the edge, and I didn't do it. And it's one of my biggest regrets in life, honestly.
There's plenty of time. There's plenty of time.
there is lots of show remaining, I promise. So we were talking about the running back, and we might as well just dive into him, David Montgomery, who I would say, with that second half that he had facing all those subpar rushing defenses, pretty much had all the volume to himself, minus a few random Cordell Patterson runs. I'd say it was a bit of smoke and mirrors, but he's going off of boards, late third, early fourth. As a value RB2 who's going to still get that volume, I mean, it's not terribly bad, right? I mean, I'm not going to draft him. I got to stay on brand, but could be worse.
You would not draft him if he was like RB55. You'd be like, you know what? For the brand, I'm going to actually pass on him. I'm going to take Damian Williams here just so that I can stay with the brand.
I will take Ryan Null before I take David Montgomery.
I love that about you.
Right. Taking Kyle Juszczyk, and you're like, technically it's not a running back.
I'm not JB. I'm not taking Kyle Juszczyk. Yeah, David Montgomery.
I like him, man. I get that, like, people are hating on him, but for where he's going at the beginning of the 5th. The difficulty for me is I like Chris Carson more. I think Kevin may have said it best. Like, people that are going in and going to go wide receiver heavy, I'm not going to use a 0 moniker, and then all of a sudden they see the running backs dry up and they're like, oh shit, they get stuck with Monty as their RB1. Like, that's not the place you want to be. But if you're going to go somewhat RB, not even RB robust, just like a good draft strategy of, if you can get him in the beginning of the 5th and you can go like 2 elite wide receivers, 2 solid running backs, and Monty is your RB3, that is screaming upside to me. The dude finished as RB4, and I don't care what anybody says about who was there, who wasn't there, and what he did at the end of the season. RB4 is RB4. That he's still awesome, and he crushed it those games when he had the chance. He had 8 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns in that span. I mean, he had a game where he had 9 receptions. Fine, the receptions go down, but the offense is better. As I saw Coop just recently say, like, I can always mess it up, but like, all boats rising tides or whatever. And if you
rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, thank you. You agree with me. See, I knew that I would turn you around
on that actual phrase.
No, good.
Yes.
If Justin Fields is there, you love your Moondog. We have A-Rob, and we really like Cole Kmet. All of a sudden, that whole offense gets better, and Montgomery gets to do better. People that say that he's just not talented, I completely disagree with. Coming out, he was the next Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, and if you look at what they did, like, you got to admit that they clearly like him, because people say, oh, he's a 3rd-round pick, but a lot of people forget that year they actually traded both their 1st and 2nd-round picks for Khalil Mack. So they traded up to get him with their earliest pick. They wanted an every down back. They want to run a balanced offense. So, I think obviously Cohen plays, but, you might have to take a chip off of there, but we're talking what? Running back 4 down to back end RB1. It still doesn't explain why he's being kind of disrespected at the ADP. So I think, like you, a lot of guys, I look at the dichotomy of him versus Chris Carson. I have the same problem with Myles Gaskin. I look at Myles Gaskin and I'm like, well, Mike Davis has these quads and they're like tree trunks, So I have a hard time with that. But once Chris Carson's gone, then I like jump. I'm like, okay, the guys are gone, and now it's my one last guy. Then I have no qualms about it. I feel a lot better about it when the other guys are gone than being the guy that reaches,
I feel like based on ADP too, where Montgomery is being drafted, people are projecting, to call another reference from earlier, Coop. You're just getting heaped with praise this episode. I hope you're okay with it. But you were referencing Jordan Howard, right? And in order to justify David Montgomery's ADP, people have to be expecting that level of drop off from him, and I just don't see it, because what we needed to see from Montgomery last year, with Tariq Cohen being out for the most of the season, was, can he catch the ball and can he do enough with it? And he did. And so he hit that notch. That's all we needed to see. Cohen coming back, yeah, sure. He's not coming back as the same guy, by the way. He's coming off of an ACL injury. He wasn't even the same guy from 3 years ago before he went down with that injury. He was much less efficient than he had been. So Montgomery, was only a matter of time, I thought, before he snuck in some of that workload. And now it just feels to me like it's 100% justified to give him the majority of it. So yeah, I'm not even banking on him to be an RB1 necessarily, but based on where he is, he has the upside to hit top 10 at the very least, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Right. A lot of people the saying that I say for that type of situation, the same thing with Adam Thielen, right? With the 14, or we'll get to that later. But people are letting great get in the way of good. You know what I mean? They're thinking, oh, well, he can't be RB4, so I don't even want him. You know what I mean? But in reality, just because he's not going to be that same exact guy, it doesn't mean that he still can't be well worth his ADP. And that's the issue you run into. People letting great get in the way of very good.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. Now, I'll throw this out there. Does Damian Williams give anybody kind of Malcolm Brown, barnacle, stuck at the bottom, of this entire ship vibes? Because that's the exact vibe that I get from Damian Williams. It could be nothing. He could be cut in, middle of August for all I know. But
just the name
gotta mean a little something.
The name is exhausting. The name Malcolm Brown just makes me want to go to bed.
Oh, Malcolm didn't do anything to you, Coop. That is rude.
He did.
Malcolm Brown is a glass of warm milk.
The reason I don't like Malcolm Brown is that he doesn't play a full snap share, but he takes a huge chunk of the valuable snaps. Why does he only play on pass downs and goal line downs? Those are what, you know what I mean? He plays just enough of the super valuable snaps to just make me be like, dude, no, why? And dude, the Dolphins grabbed him and they said, oh yeah, we're going to use this guy probably on third downs and goal line. And maybe we'll let him throw a touchdown pass. It's why the super valuable snaps? Why can't he just do third and short? Sorry.
I don't know if Damian Williams even.
He is the worst.
I don't think Damian Williams even gets that sort of workload personally, that those super valuable snaps like you're talking about. I just don't see that, because again, there's no reason for that to happen here. With Malcolm Brown, I guess you could make an argument of prior they had Darrell Henderson and he is what he is. And then Cam Akers obviously wasn't quite adjusted yet. And you can make excuses for that. I just don't see where you can make the excuses for him cutting into Montgomery's workload. But again, that's assuming rational coaching. So I don't know. Maybe I should throw that out the window, honestly.
We're lumping these guys in with these Dobbins is the closest comp, and he's going 2 rounds higher. We just referenced Akers. Akers is going as a mid-second, if not high second, and he has Darrell Henderson. Let's not forget that he is there, and they like him. You just referenced Malcolm Brown with Gaskin. Outside of what the top 7 or 8 running backs, everybody has someone. Even if, I'm sorry to say, but who knows if Chris Evans is going to be this guy for Joe Mixon, who was a back end of that 12. Everybody has somebody. Aaron Jones is, if Rodgers is there, we're going to talk about how high he is. AJ Dillon is way more of a threat than those other 2 guys are. Again, David Montgomery is not as much of a talent from those guys as those guys, but he's still figuring it out.
I let you say that Chris Evans stuff, and you're still alive, but you've been warned. I have this button. I have this button here that actually drops you, ejects you out of the room. So just I've opened the case on the button, and it's now primed to be pressed. So no Mixon, no Zeke. I mean, we're not talking about that division. Let's just please, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Why take Mike Davis in the 5th? We can get those quads even better, and AJ Dillon in the 8th.
I mean,
now let's make a bet here. All right, so we're gonna place our bet on the second passing game target for the Chicago Bears. Who is the better ADP value? If you're gonna just pick one out of these two, out of Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, both are I say Cole Kmet's going about maybe 2 rounds later than Darnell Mooney, but Kmet, Mooney, after Allen Robinson. I mean, who are we putting our chips in for?
Can I take the cheap way out and say based on positional upside, I would rather take Kmet, but that's not saying that he will be the second. That's not saying that he's going to be the second most targeted guy. It's just saying based on value, that's what I would want. But even Jimmy Graham scares me, so I'm going to completely do a 180 and say Darnell Mooney. I want to have it always, you guys. I want to have it always.
Wow, working it, dude. That's how you work it out right there. That's how you say. That's pulling a like a Jim Rome and just saying everything and also nothing.
Pull the right clip out of this segment for whatever ends up happening, and
there
just
you go.
Post that.
Yeah. Hey, would you also
phenomenal?
Hey, Jake, do us a favor. Can you just say Anthony Miller once so we can just edit that in if we need to?
Anthony Miller.
And then later we'll be like, we just edit in where you're like, somewhere in the middle, you'll be like, and that's why, based on positional scarcity, Anthony Miller, But now I'm with you though on Kmet. I mean, I just wrote an article on why you should sell Darnell Mooney in Dynasty, and people from Reddit are probably knocking on my front door ready to set fire to my house. Yeah, over quite a few people, that I said in that article that I'm looking to move. I do like Mooney in redraft. He's interesting, especially in best ball. But the thing about guys like that is that when you look at the field stretchers, like the speedy field stretchers, the ones that you can actually trust are kind of hyper elite. You know what I mean? To get that consistency, you have to be like a Tyreek Hill, Tyler Lockett, and even Tyler Lockett's kind of scary. You know what I mean? Like he scares you a little bit. And so when you're a field stretcher like that, even if you're one of the ones that are kind of pretty good, you could end up being like Marquise Brown, which nobody really, it's so hard to trust him. So he really needs to, I think if Fields can step up and be an elite QB, because like if you look at Tyreek Hill, Tyler Lockett, these guys that have been able to crack the top 24 wide receivers with less than 100 targets, which there are very few of. It's like those two and Diggs, and like maybe I think Mike Williams is another one. Like doesn't happen. Last year, every top 24 wide receiver got 100 targets. So basically, you need to have a quarterback that can either get that guy the ball deep, high efficient targets, or he's a guy that gets fed a ton of targets. I don't think he's going to be fed a ton. So I think you really need Fields to come in and be like a beast for him to really be a guy that you feel comfortable starting. That's why, for me, I think I'd just rather take Kmet at his ADP than bank on Mooney. I mean, I'm taking them both in best ball, but I'm scared.
Does how big you smile when you catch a ball from your quarterback impact your Mooney ranking?
I mean, if that were...
if he pulled off that move repeatedly that he did on Jalen Ramsey, then yes.
That move is amazing, though. Like that was
advanced metric in the weighting, by the way. Somebody needs to jump on it, trademark it, smiles per target, and just get that thing out into the world. I'm telling you.
Dude, there was a Patriots player that had the perfect smile on a catch. Now I forget who it was. I think it was the guy that had the big bug eyes. I'll look it up.
Rashae Caldwell.
Rashae Caldwell.
We'll have to edit that.
It was like
the 2 weeks episode.
Yeah. It was like the most photogenic picture. He was diving for a catch too. It was amazing. So yes, I do obviously move those guys way up in my rankings. That's why I drafted Francisco Lindor so high in fantasy baseball. I mean, the pearly whites on that guy,
Well, it's like I remember seeing what was it? George Kittle got blocked. He was run blocking, and the dude is like hysterically laughing. Like he's on the ground. He got tangled up with somebody. The dude's just like laughing like his ass off. It's George Kittle's tight end one, just because of that.
Clearly. So back to Kmet. Sorry. So with Cole, because I am like, I feel like I have this roller coaster with him every single day, every single week. For you guys would not know this, I keep a running list on my phone, like a notes app list of players that I constantly am taking on and off for Scott Fish in particular. And so Komet is one of these guys that I can't figure out if I want to hyper target or if I want to totally fade, because man, Jimmy Graham is terrifying. He is just like a touchdown boogeyman. Like, just having a touchdown vulture is the most terrifying thing to cap someone's upside.
Just leave, Jimmy. What are you doing? Can't you let us have anything nice at all? Just do the right thing and leave.
Go fly some planes, buddy.
Every player that's ever had the torn patellar tendon that he had has just been done. Like, you know what I mean? Like Cadillac Williams, Trod Mayo, Victor Cruz. Jimmy Graham's like, nah, I'll just play through it. It's like, dude,
I played basketball. Like, this ain't nothing for me, you guys.
It's like, that's like a death sentence injury for every player. Who is the guy from the Cardinals that led the league? David Boston. Just when you get that injury, when you get that injury, you're just done. And Jimmy Graham's like, nah, I'm gonna keep playing.
Rub some dirt on it, you know.
He's fine. Patellas, I got another.
That's a Tuesday for me. What are you talking about?
I love the Komet of I'm going to punt on tight end, and I'm going to take 2 to 3 in that range. Like, I think one of my favorite groupings was like Higbee, Komet, and Everett. And I was like, one of you guys should probably get to where I need you to be.
Swapping Troutman, and I'm right there with you.
I love him.
Troutman's a fish play.
I just sent you. I just tagged
you
guys
hunting
in that picture.
son of a bee. Okay,
Brandon. It was Brandon Lloyd. That was the smile picture. Yeah. I just tagged you guys on there. I love it. Gem. Check it out.
That is awesome. Yeah. Well, you're tuned into Lightning Round again. I'm Kevin Tompkins with Mr. Gary Haddow, Andrew Cooper, Jake Trowbridge. We are going to talk about a team that is probably going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, but we are contractually obligated to talk about them since they are a member of the NFL. That is the Detroit Lions. Now, comparing the ceiling and the Gary, are you alive?
This is a picture, man. This picture's amazing,
dude.
Okay. Good Lord.
Okay, go on.
I'm gonna have to check this out. Holy crap, you're right.
It's like
it's good.
Go on my Twitter. HADDOW27, Kate Tompkins, II, Koopa Fiasco, and Jake Trowbridge. Look at the photo of Brandon Lloyd. You'll find it.
Oh my God, that is beautiful. I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I forgot it was Lloyd.
That is awesome. Who by the way, that dude made the tough catches look easy and the easy catches look tough.
Oh, so it was so confusing.
It was our generation's Mike Williams.
Really is though. So comparing the ceiling of TJ Hawkinson and the downside, which, ceiling top 3 tight end, gonna just absolutely shatter in targets, to the downside, team in disarray, likely the worst team in the NFL or NFL NFC by a clear margin. Is TJ Hawkinson's ADP, Jake, tight end 6? I think it's too rich, just right, room to improve.
He's in a very tricky spot for me from a redraft perspective because historically, I do not mess with tight ends that are outside of the top elite tier, which to me would be obviously Kittle, Waller, and spoiler alert, just borderline Kittle. He is flirting with getting out of that tier for me this year. But regardless, I typically don't mess with those mid-round next tier tight ends. I punt, like you're talking about, Gary. Like I wait and get a gaggle of those guys at the end. And then I deal with that and I stream. So Hawkinson is a very precarious position for me. But who else are the targets going to reasonably go to? In bad offenses can be fine for fantasy players. They really can be, because if you are consistently down and having to always throw, great. You get a bunch of targets and you might not score. And that's what's going to suck for Hawkinson, is because the touchdowns, I don't believe will be there enough for him. One, because I know Jared Goff loves his deep ball and he has a couple of those wide receiving options now. So if they're not going to flirt with the red zone, he's just going to chuck it from the 50-yard line, and either Brashad Perryman or Tyrell Williams is going to catch it, get that touchdown, right? Hawkinson getting to double-digit touchdowns, I think, is going to be a lot trickier than people expect for Hawkinson. But the target share is going to be so amazing. The only other big target hog in that offense is probably going to be DeAndre Swift. So I don't know. Tight end 6, I could see a world where I draft him there for sure.
Yeah. In a world where Jake drafts TJ Hawkinson at tight end 6.
Double the action.
Gonna have to redo that on the edit.
Twice the fun.
So many karate chops, you betcha. Oh my god.
Karate fighters.
If you ask me if I'm trained, yes, obviously classically trained. I've been watching Gary Haddow's videos on YouTube, and so lethal.
Kevin, when you talk about TJ Hawkinson, can you be like, come on? So what are we talking about? We're talking about a ceiling tight end 3, but then we have this terrible team. We're talking about this terrible floor. Tight end 4. I mean, like that's the range,
you know what?
Right?
It's because on Monday they made me talk shit about TJ Hawkinson.
That's right.
It
gets in your head. It gets in your head, right? With truth or dare.
It did a little bit.
Yeah.
But are you worried about the touchdowns legitimately, Kevin? Like, obviously you're saying that he is there regardless, but like, are you worried about that at all?
I think the targets can offset the touch. I mean, we were going over touchdowns in just teams, the lowest touchdowns scored by a team each year. I think we got to like 15 was like the lowest, and that was like I think Carolina in 2011 or 2010, one of those years. But they're going to score about 25 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty much with the way offenses are going now. That's about the low end. I can't fathom him scoring double digits. If he can get 5 or 6 with 140 targets, I think he's fine as a tight end 5-ish.
Jake, you want to hear the softest take, even softer than the one you just gave us on Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney, which was crazy soft?
Absolutely.
So my take is that in half-point PPR, I draft Mark Andrews ahead of Hawkinson because of the touchdown upside, but in full-point PPR, I draft TJ Hawkinson for the target upside.
Can I tell you flat out, I would take Hawkinson above Andrews in both formats because I am so low on Andrews. This is not an Andrews podcast, and we don't have to talk about it. But I'm soft on Hawkinson even, but I would put him above Andrews in both of those categories, actually. I really would.
I have him flopped. I do think that Andrews has the upside to score a bunch of touchdowns, which in half-point PPR, when you look at the tight end rankings, you'd be surprised how much those touchdowns weigh. Like it's not standard, but I mean, it's like gross. When you look at like the guys that finish like 7, 8, 9, dude, like it's yucky, and it's all touchdowns. Like Johnny Smith and like Jimmy Graham were like nice in that format. So, which that you shouldn't like that. So that's why when I rank those guys, it's like I look at it every single year, and I'm like, you know what? I usually, I rank everybody, but I really just care about tight ends. So I go in and like when I look at it every year, the tight ends are different. Like they finish different in PPR and full PPR. So I can't justify ranking them just that one way. So I gotta mix it up at certain points, and that's one of the spots where I do mix it.
Last year, Hawkinson was better than Andrews. I mean, he was 101 for 67, 723, and 6. And Andrews ended up being 56 for 701 and 7. Like even the year before when like Andrews was a revelation, right? Because you got him in round 10. Like I won't lie, it took me to multiple championships having him. I thought he scored 14 touchdowns. I don't know why that number's in my head. He only scored 10. He had
only 10.
No. But again, like so Jake earlier said, can you see him getting to double digits? And that's like out of my head is like, did most tight ends get there? Like you have to be
in this economy
to do
that. But last year, you look at it last year in half-point PPR, TJ Hawkinson scored I don't know, off the top of my head, I'd say he scored about 141.8 points exactly. And Mark Andrews scored 141.1 points, and he's played 2 less games. So in half-point PPR, Mark Andrews was better. That's what I'm saying is that in your mind, in our minds at this point, because we play so many leagues, everything's PPR, and everything's tiered PPR, and everything's Scott Fishbowl, and it's all fucking crazy, gummy drops and everything. But a lot of people out there do play just normal half-point PPR leagues, and in those leagues you have to make these like boring plays, so I think that Mark Andrews, I think he gets the touchdowns. I mean, who else is going to get him?
So Kevin and I did a thing last year where we used to do $5 bets, and we never actually, I don't even know if we ever did anything with it, but we're going to start doing it again because I want to do that. And it's always hard when there's multiple people. It's just not 1-on-1. I want to do a half-point Hawk versus Andrews. And I love Andrews. I love him, but
all right. $5.
Okay, so it's $5. What we said was it's like the net difference goes to charity. I think I still have it on my phone somewhere. We'll figure it out.
I'm putting it in there. Gary definitely paying $5 to charity.
We'll use our pass. I'll put it in the passwords doc.
I actually typed that. All right. Yeah. What is that? Andrews, Hawkinson.
Half point.
What a stupid
half PPR.
Half PPR.
Well, let's let's shift away from Hawkinson. Let's go to over to the other back we talked about. It's DeAndre Swift. Jake, you think the consensus is too high on DeAndre Swift relative to the Lions team overall situation?
I don't think it's too high. So currently he is in this batch of running backs that are such a gray, murky mess to me. There is this grouping of them that I am avoiding. I mean, I'm taking the Kevin style approach in these drafts. Just like when I am in a certain round and all of these guys are there on the board, I'm just saying, screw running back for this round. Because it is the Dobbins territory. I know he's a little lower than where Swift is, but it's a lot of these second-year guys that I don't personally love, and they all have some red flags. And Swift has red flags, which is the offense. It is also the fact that I think, and maybe this is my Packers homerism coming out here.
Lay it on me. I know where you're going.
I think Jamal Williams is a bigger threat to his overall workload, and most importantly, his pass-catching workload than people maybe want to admit right now. And that's where he's going to make his bread and butter, is in targets. If Swift, yeah, sure. I mean, if he can hit that 100 target notch, amazing. He's going to smash his ADP, no problem. My issue is just that, like, Jamal Williams, man, the guy is not nothing in the pass catching game. In fact, he's been pretty nice in that respect. And Detroit, I know it's a different regime, but like Detroit running backs overall have scared me so much to the point that they will ever use them the way that they need to be used. Oh my God. The preach is coming in at the bottom left of this screen, by the way. Holy hell. They've scared me off of believing that Swift could be a top 12 guy at all. But where he's priced for ADP is fine. I mean, if you want to take a shot there, cool. But it's that murky, middle, gross running back territory. I'm just staying away from all those guys. So I don't love him personally.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think that this comes down to that rational coaching thing we talked about, right? Like a rational coach and a rational GM would look at this team and be like, okay, we built this like horrifying skeleton crew ghost ship that's just like moving cap to next year, right? And collecting comp picks and just trying to, get a good pick next year, and Vegas knows it and everyone knows it. So like a reasonable person would be like, let's not run DeAndre Swift into the ground. But, as we talk about, coaches are not reasonable. So there's a very good chance that Anthony Lynn gets out there and he's like, yeah, that's what we do here. We throw it to the running back a million times until he's hurt, right? Like Austin Eckler. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they did too. But the other thing that I will just say, I wrote an article on DeAndre Swift, Andrew Cooper at Fantasy Alarm, DeAndre Swift. That's all the info there is there that I'm talking about here. But the one other thing I'll mention is that DeAndre Swift graded out outside the top 100 backs in pass blocking. And for those keeping track at home, there's only 32 teams. So that's not like a super good pass blocking score. Just the year before last, Jamal Williams graded out as the second best pass blocking back. So I think that's where they justify it by saying, like, you know, Brad Holmes is a GM. He watched Todd Gurley get run into the ground, and that's where he justifies saying, okay, we brought in this guy who can pass block. Let's, you know, just use him, and we'll keep Swift on ice until we're ready to actually try and win. You know, in a rational world, that's what would happen. In real life, you know, they'll probably throw 150 targets to Swift. So, you know, like you said, I mean, who else besides Hawkinson deserves it? That's the other question. You know, so I can see both sides.
Rational world.
Where karate.
I want to play
karate.
This
You should just say that out loud instead of actually ever doing karate. From here on out, like if you find yourself in a bar situation where it's tense and you have to intimidate somebody, instead of doing the moves, you just say karate over and over. And I'm pretty sure they'll back off.
That'll do it. Yeah, just lick your lips, be like, karate. They'll be like,
really no karate. He just says it like that.
But you know, there's the threat of karate once you've mentioned it. You know,
it takes a strong man to say karate and not have to do it.
That's right. Yeah, just give him that look. I bet the new coach Dan Campbell has a strong look and say karate move within him. I bet he knows some sort of.
He does actual karate moves though in that locker room. I'll place a bet right now. 90% of the afters from the games, at least he does a couple of karate moves to try and put people in line. I'm locking that down. Let's make a $5 bet right now.
I'm just hold the football over your head. I'll kick it.
You gotta give me like 100 to 5 for me to take the non-karate side of that, because
one of Dan Campbell's writers. One of Dan Campbell's writers, like in his like coaching office, is I need at least 8 wooden boards at all times.
There's probably karate in the interview.
And a brown belt.
That was probably the whole interview. He probably didn't say anything. He just brought in like a brick and like broke it with his forehead. And he was like, "Are we ready to play football?"
He brought in like Sensei Ira from The Office.
Kumite bitches, and then just hit it as hard as you could.
Right, dude. And then Brad Holmes was like, "Sweep the leg, Johnny."
Oh my God, Gary!
Really
you want to play what?
I want to play this or that with DeAndre Swift. So he's going as RB15. This is according to Best Ball 10s. DeAndre Swift, and this is for redraft. DeAndre Swift or Dobbins?
Swift because of the targets.
I agree. I actually in regular redraft where you have to pick your starting lineup, I like Swift. If it's like Best Ball where, you know, if the guy runs a 70-yard touchdown, you get it, then I kind of like Dobbins, but Swift for sure. If I'm, you know, picking a guy and he needs to have a floor.
Swift, 100%.
Okay. CEH?
I CH.
CH.
Completely agree. Sanders, I think probably going Swift.
Swift.
It's interesting, but I'm actually
there's an argument for both.
I'm nervous about Gainwell more than I am about
new Naheem Hines.
Actually,
don't say that. I thought you were like I did this whole preach thing. Like I thought you were totally on board with Jamalin.
I am, but rational coaching.
Jamal's my most owned.
No,
player
I will take
teams,
Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, the mobile quarterback does hurt the pass catching RB. So I mean, the Sanders thing rubs me the wrong way. The whole situation, like I thought he was going to be so good, and now I'm like nervous. I don't know.
Post type sleeper. And then it's 2 more. So Chris Carson.
Every day.
Thank you. And well, hold on. So like we're not going to do the wide receivers, but I think this makes that point. And David Montgomery.
It was going to happen.
Montgomery for me. Yeah.
High five. Wait, no, I whispered it for some reason as if we're not doing a podcast.
We do this running back or that running back, and Kev just says wide receiver every time.
Wait, but that's the whole point. Like, so Carson is going at the end of the 4th. Monty's going at the beginning of the 5th. Like, that gives you, like, you could go, like, I'm so Scott Fish right now because that's all I'm thinking about. But, like, QB or running back, and then you can go stacked wide receiver. Like Carson or Montgomery. Swift is going. So I won't own any Swift, despite the fact in the lightning round best ball, I, for some reason, own Barkley and Swift and Montgomery.
So you won't own any Swift except the Swift you own, and the Swift that
except for the one that I completely screwed up that league because I, for some reason, took Hawkinson in the 2nd, and I immediately was like, Oh, apparently I like Hawkinson over Stephon Diggs, which was what I meant to do.
Pitts went 11 overall in mine, so you can't really screw it up much worse. And dude, Justin Fields went 7 overall in mine.
But Kevin, I think your point of saying wide receiver there is so correct. Like, it feels dirty for me taking any of those running backs because you're passing up on, like, literal, in my mind, like, elite locked in top 12 wide receivers.
Like
and I'd rather
Justin
have those
Jefferson,
than these.
we'll talk about him. Like, that's that range.
It's crazy.
So let's just let's do this one real quick. We'll move on to the best team in the NFC North here. If you're going to take a dart throw on any Detroit wide receiver between Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perryman, and ASMR St. Brown. ASMR St. Brown. Whisper.
I really like Brashad Perryman over those guys.
Karate.
One was like the number 8 pick.
Just
Like, one of them won
Karate.
the Scott Fishbowl title. Shout out.
Then one of them was the 8th pick in like the 4th round too.
We don't talk about 4th round on this podcast. It upsets Kevin. It upsets Andrew.
Okay, so Tyrell Williams or Brashad Perryman then.
That's Brashad, man.
Well, let's let our guest answer.
I'm honestly going to take the guy who's had 1,000-yard season, and I try not to read too much into the headlines at this point, but Tyrell Williams is kind of the only good thing that's been written about so far, so I will narrowly take Tyrell at this point.
Because of that one season he had.
The rich man's Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
And dude,
Yeah.
think of it this way: the way this league works with the money and stuff, right? And they're like, okay, we're gonna hire 2 wide receivers, and one of them we're gonna give $4 million, and the other one we're gonna give $2.5 million. I mean, doesn't that tell you at least a little something about what they think about these fellas?
Brashad Perriman was startable in games for the Jets. Tyrell Williams was barely even considerable with the Raiders.
He was hurt, man. He was hurt the whole time.
I mean, I can't help how he works out. Like, that sucks, man. But what if he's going to do that in Detroit? It's going to be colder. He's going to be even more hurt.
There you have it. Gary Harrow promises that Tyrell Williams gets hurt because it's cold in Detroit.
There's nothing to do in Detroit, man. He was in Vegas.
They play indoors.
On to the next one. Yeah, dude, Tyrell Williams' contract with Vegas was ridiculous. He was getting $11 million a year, 4 years, $44 million, $11 million a year. They could cut him for $0 every single year, and they never did before he could get hurt and collect that money. So he basically got $11 million every single year until this last year. Like,
Was that the same year they brought in Antonio Brown too?
Yeah, Antonio Brown, dude.
Yeah,
I like Derek Carr
frozen
more
feet
than
man.
Shithead
Froze his
Jared
feet
Goff.
off and called the GM a cracker over a minor hat dispute. What shirt gives that?
I'm sorry, minor hat dispute? Are we just going to gloss over that as a phrase altogether? Oh, goodness.
He painted a helmet and brought it there. It wasn't even the right colors, dude. The preachers are back. You pressing one button to trigger that? That might be the new thing, dude.
Someone typed preach and it showed up as all. So boom, boom.
Oh,
boom.
nice.
You're welcome.
Oh, so if you hit the top one, it
yeah.
triggers them all. That's great.
So I trust Derek Carr way more than Jared Goff because Jared Goff just sucks. Like, he is just a terrible person. Like, I just don't like him as a human.
He sent my Ani Koopy an autographed jersey in the mail. Gary, you take that back right now. He sucks at football.
Did he actually do that?
Yeah, he did. He was very nice to my Ani Koop.
He has a really good PR team.
Yeah. So that's probably
Sorry,
right.
Gary feels terrible now.
I hate this
and
guy.
we're going to
I
use
hate
that
him.
segue. We're going to use that segue to talk about the Green Bay Packers. But first, if you're still watching us after all these preaches, I'm Kevin Tompkins, Gary Haddo, Andrew Cooper, Jake Trowbridge. We are talking NFC North on Lightning Round. Let's talk about the Packers, Jake.
Let's do it. I've been
waiting for this moment.
so patiently. Okay.
What do I do with my
So-
hands?
I feel left out. Can I be like a Packers fan just for a little bit? I'm an AFC guy, so can they be my NFC team just for now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll allow it. I don't know, Kevin. What do you think?
Yeah, why not? More than
Jay
merrier.
Alexander.
We're not exactly the board of
apparently
directors
left,
here.
so
Jordy Nelson. Yeah, he's a 49ers fan, so he's already got an NFC team. You know,
I got to meet Jordy and Randall Cobb a couple of years ago, literally right before they both left the team. So I feel like I was the impetus, and I just want to apologize for that. I've never said it out loud, but I think I'm the reason that they left. So
all right. Well, question for you then: who is more handsome up close, and who smells better?
Oh, it's Cobb. It's easily Randall. I got a photo with both of them, gentlemen, and nothing against Jordy, but yes, that man has been on a farm for a very long time, and that's okay. But Randall Cobb just dynamite.
Jordy
yeah, but you know
Tanzo,
who smokes them
rough.
both out of the water? You know who smokes them both out of the water? Mr. Donald Driver.
Oh, easily. You talk about smiles of all time.
Yeah.
My goodness. He could light up a landing strip for an airport with that smile that he's got. It's fantastic.
Double D is definitely one of my favorite Packers of all time. But let's talk about the 2021. Let's steer this ship. Let's get those landing. You know, I don't know what the hell they're called. That's a gift, probably. Anyway, yeah, those things. Whatever they're called. I don't know. I'm not Jimmy Graham. I don't fly planes for a living. So
Get the karate going.
Maybe he should be.
Get the karate.
Yeah, that's the karate. So Aaron Rodgers' career best 9.1 touchdown rate in 2020 eclipsed even his best season in 2011. Currently, he is quarterback 8 and slipping a little bit due to the uncertainty of his situation. Might be in a little jeopardy. Wink, wink. Is Rodgers still? I'm so sorry. I have to do it. The shareholders they want me to make some talking points. I gotta keep them happy.
I'm checking them off as you go. Our sponsors. You already mentioned Karate, which is one of our main sponsors.
Karate Fighters.
Packers Landing Jets, of course. I think it covers most of them. Also, use promo code Lightning Round on Underdog if you're new to Underdog Fantasy. It's with a $10 deposit, you get $25 right into your account immediately. I'm not even sure how they can afford it. Back to you guys.
The brand synergy is off the charts. So yeah, Rodgers is. You think he's still in that elite quarterback tier as it stands right now, even with the uncertainty? Is he kind of maybe in that between the elites where, he's kind of off in his own little world, or is he down in that Tannehill, Stafford, Hurts, Brady kind of tier? What are you doing with him with the uncertainty that's going on right now?
I was, even as of a couple of weeks ago, the biggest apologist for him showing up, and he will be a Packer to start the season. And no worries, I am planning full steam ahead for Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And now I am. There's a small bit of worry that's been introduced, only enough to worry like, in that tier of quarterbacks, let's all things considered equal. If they were all playing 16 games, would I rather have him above that chunk that he's going near with your Hurts and your Brady and your Staffords and whatnot? Yes, I would. I would take him above those players for 16 games. With this little bit of nervousness that I have about that, I'm very interested in Tom Brady for the first time in his entire career as a fantasy player, by the way, which I'm sure is going to lead to the death of him as fantasy productive. The dude was magic last year in a brand new offense for the first time in his entire damn career. I don't see that going down. His weapons have all stayed the same, etc. Like one of the most pass-friendly offenses in the league. I would take Brady above Rodgers currently. Right now, I would take him above him. I'm getting to the spot where I would take Hurts above him too because of the rushing upside and the assurance that Hurts is going. The only other quarterback they have is Joe Flacco on the Eagles team. Joe Flacco is not going to be starting meaningful games for the Eagles. Now, that is just me projecting that Hurts makes all of those games meaningful for the team, and he doesn't flame out, right? But if he doesn't, then he has that rushing floor of that 1,000-yard upside. Like, give it to me over the uncertainty of Rodgers. Stafford is where I start to draw a line. And now I'm thinking I would take Rodgers over Stafford.
This is a serious question. Rodgers is staying. He is playing all 17. Yeah. Rodgers are hurt.
If it's 17 for both, Rodgers or
you
Hurts.
You know that they are both playing. Well, going into the season, they're both locked and loaded. We'll just go with that. They're locked and loaded. They're the starters. Who do you take?
Rodgers. In that case, I do not
QB5.
shy away from the reigning MVP. Yeah, I mean, from where he finished last year, I'm absolutely taking Rodgers. Yeah.
Rodgers or Dak?
Dak. I mean,
So
you
QB5.
say that with or without the uncertainty, I'll take Dak there for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for me,
I agree with it. QB5.
I think that like you could easily argue that Rodgers is a better real life quarterback, but I just think that the Cowboys are in the perfect position of bad defense, good offense, explosive playmakers. I mean, like, just look at the weapons. You know what I mean? Like, obviously Devontae Adams is the best, but Amari Cooper's, he's a step down. But I mean, like, compare the next best guy to CeeDee Lamb. Compare the next best guy to Michael Gallup. You know what I mean? It's like, it's there. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And plus, when you have a better defense, the games are easier. My take on it, I'm right with Jake on like all those rankings. So I can really, what I'll add is that if I'm in super flex, I'll actually steer towards Rodgers and Brady over Hurts just because I trust them. And I know that you can't just go out and find a quarterback. In a single quarterback league, I'm glad I'll take Hurts because I know in the back of my mind, I'll find some. If he is completely terrible, I can find somebody. There's guys out there that you can find on waivers in single quarterback leagues to figure it out. In a 2 quarterback league, that's where I get a little scared that when if I take my first guy and he has true bust potential, that you can't just invent quarterbacks in that format. So that's where I get a little scared. But for the most part, if it's single quarterback league, I'm going exactly like Jake said. Give me the upside, and then give me those guys. And then once you get into the next crew with like the Staffords and stuff, that's where I'm like, give me the upside on the MVP.
That is true. You cannot invent quarterbacks.
I invent tight ends all the time, dog. In fact, invented Mark Andrews, invented Anthony Ferkser, and then I uninvented him. It's a long day. Eli Wolf
was just a figment of Wolf's imagination.
Eli Wolf is in production. Eli Wolf is in production. He was gonna have his debut during the Mark Andrews COVID week. A little setback in the tight end production center via injury derailed that, but I think Eli Wolf, he's ready to come off the assembly line. Karate.
Eli Wolf of Wall Street,
belt, man. Fix it. I need Ferkser back up and running. So if you could get the conveyors going for him again, I would appreciate it personally.
Fucking Julio Jones bursted through the wall of the factory like the Kool-Aid man and just totally screwed that one up, right? Like everything was perfect. It was like Ferkser versus Josh Reynolds. Like everyone's kind of mediocre. Who even knows or cares? And then Julio comes out of nowhere and he's like, "Yeah, I'll just take all the targets. I'll take all." You know what I mean? Like it's just killed every Ferkser.
Rude is what it is.
It's crazy rude. Yeah,
it really is rude.
I had a big pile of receipts. I was looking like Andre Johnson at like when he goes to like the Toys R Us and he's got all the receipts for the kids. That was me with my Ferkser tweets, and then it's just gone.
They're like going to get a bottle of shampoo at CVS. I mean,
right.
I love the idea of
exactly. Yeah, I didn't have that many receipts, Kev. that's that's like 1,000 tweets,
It really is. Sorry, Gary.
I just love the idea of creating a random player and being like, no, get this, guys. We're going to have this one tight end. He's going to be so epic. And in one season, he's going to catch one catch for 54 yards and a touchdown. And the next season, he's going to be amazing, but not that amazing. But the season after that, he's going to be like tight end 3. Double the greatest thing ever. You guys are going to lose your minds. But also, like, we have no idea because I just made him up.
It's like
fake.
It's like the Jane Lynch meme that I am going to create a tight end out of hype that is so terrible.
It's so terrible. It's Eli
that
Wolf,
is,
dude.
Yep. So let's talk about the running backs of Green Bay. We talked about Mr. Quads there, A.J. Dillon going off at RB35. Aaron Jones going off the board at RB11. I have him much higher, actually. About I think I have him at RB8 right now. It kind of feels to me that the valuation of both backs is off on ADP. For both backs, I think Aaron Jones might be a little bit low. I think A.J. Dillon, honestly, might be a little bit high at RB35, but what changes do we need to make as far as, valuing both these players, with the quarterback situation in mind?
Well, currently, projecting Aaron Rodgers to start, which I think is important for rankings to probably do. I actually think that A.J. Dillon is pretty appropriately valued personally because I think that he has the touchdown upside that Jamal Williams did not have. And Jamal Williams was already a very reasonable RB3 level guy for his last couple of seasons there. Now, the pass catching work is where you're probably not going to see with A.J. Dillon. I think it's a bit raw to keep saying that A.J. Dillon can't catch the ball. He can. He just has not had to do that. But I also don't think that he's going to be asked to do it a ton in Green Bay either. And I do think that's what benefits AJ. Not AJ. Well, yeah, AJ, Aaron Jones. That's what benefits Aaron Jones and why I do think that he will exceed that ADP. I was actually just considering very, very recently that Aaron Jones has that upside to even potentially be a top 3 guy this year still, because the amount, again, it all comes down to the amount of pass catching work that is leaving Jamal Williams, going to Detroit, which he's going to eat into DeAndre Swift. That is leaving Green Bay, and that is going to fall to Aaron Jones. It's not going to fall to A.J. Dillon, and I think that's what you have to bank on for kind of if you're considering taking Aaron Jones high, and you're going to have to take him somewhat high to get him on your rosters this year. And I'm comfortable with it because they haven't added any pass catchers outside of Amari Rodgers. As a rookie, I think long-term, I'm very excited for him. I hope Amari does amazing, beautiful, wonderful things in Green Bay. I don't know how many of those could possibly happen this year. And Gary just added on the damn Packers jersey, and I love it. With Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, as we're assuming, he is of the finicky Tom Brady variety. I don't see that gelling happening immediately for a rookie wide receiver. I think it's going to be too tough for him to eat in too much of the workload. So long story short, I think Aaron Jones valued a little too low. A.J. Dillon, I think, valued kind of appropriately.
Mm-hmm. I'm right
there.
The
Aaron Jones slander. I had to put on the jersey.
I love it, man. I'm there with Aaron Jones, man. I think Aaron Jones is a lot of people. I've been seeing people say that Aaron Jones could be better without Rodgers, which I disagree with that personally. I feel like I say, Gary, I'm a rising tide. Now you messed up. No, I don't even
rising tide. I use this in
like
every single Cincinnati Bengals take. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Rising tide, something karate, I think it is. So rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that because when you really think about it, like Aaron Jones has scored 30 touchdowns in his last 30 games, right? Aaron Jones is amazing, but he scored a lot of those because the team is amazing. And the biggest example I have is think back to 2016 LeGarrette Blount, right? Like the dude scored 18 touchdowns. Is LeGarrette Blount amazing, or was he just playing with the easily, and everyone agrees, the greatest quarterback of all time? I think that was the case, right? So it's not like Blount just hurdled his way to all those touchdowns. All the Rodgers fans just went on. I think you guys are frozen or something.
I wanted to click that little exit button in the bottom, but I couldn't find it. So
it was just
listening to this.
It was big and red, and it looked, very inviting.
Did you guys open? You guys opened your eject buttons for me. Now all the Everyone now has their fingers on the nukes on this podcast right now. So, yeah.
It's going to get dicey from here on out.
They're both very good quarterbacks. And that speaks to both players, though. And obviously Aaron Jones is better than LeGarrette Blount. He caught 7 passes that season. The guy is just a big dirt clod or whatever. But so Aaron Jones has the possibility this year to catch a ton more passes, and he can score a touchdown every single game. That's my point. So with Aaron Rodgers there, I immediately take Aaron Jones from where I have him in my standings. I think I have him maybe 7, and I move him right up to 6, but maybe 5, maybe even 5.
The slanderous takes on Aaron Jones, which bit me in the ass last year because A.J. Dillon came in and I traded him away despite him being my boy 2019. This jersey was sent to me by the Kevin Tompkins after I won Scott Fish on the back of Aaron Jones and other people. And honestly, Jake said, I can see him being running back 3. No. You can see him being running back 1 because he's already been running back 3. He lost Jamal Williams, who was taking all this work, especially on the snaps that we didn't want Jamal to be in there. The passing downs, because he can't freaking supposedly block. Dude, we're coming in. Aaron Jones is coming in hot. He's going to running back 11 right now. So ridiculous. He needs to be at minimum 8, and that is a hedge on Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers is there, sure. Honestly, he's up there with Kamara for me. I don't really care what anybody else says. He's up there. The biggest concern for me of Rodgers there is the fact that Corey Linsley's gone. Like that scares me for Aaron Jones. But everything else, fine, dude. Bring it on. They're gonna have a second wide receiver. Like the team's gonna be better. I fucking hate the Packers, right? Like I love watching them lose the NFC Championship game. But Aaron Jones is so sick. He is so good. Hashtag free Aaron Jones is a real thing still. Free from your minds. He is going to be better than you think.
Good God.
Garrett, can I jump in? Can I ask real quick? Because you're on this you're on this steamroll right now, and I don't want to derail it. Can I just ask right now, because this is a contentious spot for a lot of people. Aaron Jones or Ezekiel Elliott this year? Straight up.
I really think
I'll look the other way.
No, this second in time is Aaron Jones. This second in time, is Zeke, because I don't know what's going to happen with Rodgers. If I knew Rodgers was going to be back, oh God, that's tough.
It's Zeke either way for me, but I have both higher.
To me, Zeke is right up there. Like I have the top 3, and that includes Henry, and then I have this like hodgepodge of 4, 5, and 6, and that would pretty much be AK, Zeke, and AJ and Jones.
Dude, you could say I love Zeke. I'm the biggest Zeke guy there is, but Gary, you can say whatever you want right now because you just took the preach meter to 11 and tore the knob off. Dude. That was. I'm like, dude. I'm sitting here. I'm like, shit. I don't know. Aaron Jones. Yeah. I'm like Zeke. I'm like Zeke RB1. And after that speech right there, I'm like, geez. Yeah. I'm ready to run through a wall for Aaron Jones.
Right. I feel like Julio right now.
If you look at his game log, the reason we always were kind of low on Aaron Jones, especially in 2019, I know this because that's when I particularly had him. He had the games where he would just have like 4 touches. You're like, what the fuck's going on? Like, this makes no sense. But because Jamal would be heavy in those games, I think those days are gone. I think he's going to always be consistent with the blow up games. Like Thanksgiving, he scored 4 touchdowns. I will always forever remember that game. The last game of the season, it was like, he had over 150 rushing and not to even include his passing game or receiving game. The dude's awesome and he deserves everything. And the best landing spot that we could have for Aaron Jones is landing back in Green Bay.
I love it.
I agree. And I only have Zeke above Aaron Jones, but I have both much higher than consensus. I have Aaron Jones I have both Ezekiel Elliott and Aaron Jones over Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, on a bad offense.
Yeah.
Just that efficiency. Okay. You know, if Rodgers is back, that just means that entire efficient offense, you know, the main pieces are gonna be good. You know, I don't think you can really
how good Rodgers was. Like because of what happened against the Bucs. We forget because it happened twice, and then Bakhtiari was gone. Like it's so different. I genuinely we'll get there in a sec, but like Amari Rodgers changes the dynamic. You move MVS to being a 3 or a 4 with Lazard being a 3. Like I have teams that I absolutely hate. I hate the Seahawks, but I have mad respect for their receivers and Wilson. I feel the same way almost exactly about the Packers.
Mad respect. All right, so while we're on the wide receiver 2 discussion, Alan Lazard, wide receiver 79, MVS, wide receiver 80, Amari Rodgers, wide receiver 92. I mean, these 3 are your main contestants as far as the wide receiver 2-a-thon in Green Bay. So, who?
None is my answer for this year. I don't want to
Tonyan?
I'm sorry.
You just said he was your QB5.
Yeah, that's fine. He did that all on the back of Devontae Adams as his primary pass catcher and Aaron Jones as his secondary pass catcher and Robert Tonyan. Kevin, I know you don't like Tonyan, but he is involved in what made Aaron Rodgers so great last year, and so it's tough to overlook him. I'm not saying Tonyan is going to be this magical tight end again this year like he was last year, but what I am saying is that I do not trust any wide receiver 2 in Green Bay currently because, number one, historically, since the days of you have to go back all the way to 2011, 2012, to when they actually had a fantasy reliable wide receiver 2 in the mix there. And I'm pretty sure that was Randall Cobb when that was the case. And now you've got a couple of guys that Rodgers really has trust in, has his faith in, which is Lazard. And maybe MVS has worked his way back into that mix for him where he believes that. But I mean it when I say that he is one of the most finicky quarterbacks in terms of needing to gel with somebody, needing to really trust them. And until he does not hyper target them. And that's why it's tough for me to get on board with Amari this year. For Dynasty, I love him. I actually think that he is an immediate go trade for him now before people realize in a couple of years he's going to blow up. I just don't see it happening this year, unfortunately.
Look, I don't really get into these deep dives that often, but I'm going to lay on some serious research that I did the other day. I saw a video of Devin Funchess dunking, and it was, dude, it was dope.
I hate you. I hate you so much right now.
It was like a windmill. What's funny is that I usually am the one that does the annoying deep stuff, but I'm serious. Google it, dude. Devin Funchess basketball. It's awesome. So yeah, probably back on the Funch wagon. So. Got you guys there.
So, for reals though, talking about just the ADP of those guys, everything you said, Jake, is so true. But the premise of I'm not touching any of them is false because of what you said. And it makes Rodgers at 92. Rodgers should be going at 72 ahead of these guys solely for the unknown factor and where they go in drafts. Because if Jordy was number 2, he was wide receiver 2 every year, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and Randall Cobb was wide receiver 15. You hit on that number 2, and everything changes. And let's just say, fine, Aaron Jones, we'll take out Robert Tonyan, even though they had tight ends back then. They had Jermichael, you see, we're fine. He's 72 and he's not 15, but he can be a top 24, especially look at what you are now competing against, the Bucks in particular. Everything, the NFL is a reactionary league. You have to beat whoever's best, and it is now the Bucks, the Chiefs, and the Bills. I'm going to say the Niners, even though I probably know that those other offenses are better. You have to do something so that you are not the perennial laughing stock of the NFL. Even though I said I wasn't going to bring it up, we've already done it once. The NFC Championship every single year.
My one question, because you bring up a really great point, which is if you hit on the guy, you're gold. If you hit on Amari Rodgers at that ADP, then you are gold. My only question when it comes to redraft is how comfortable are you holding that guy through week 4 when he hasn't hit yet? What's your dropping point for a rookie? My point is you have to really be ready to hold through the thin at the start of the season to get maybe what is coming to you in those later weeks. Personally, I'm not comfortable with that. And that's why I say I won't have these guys because I don't want to mess with Lazard and MVS. And I don't want to mess with Amari because I'm going to be that guy who drops him after 2 weeks. And I don't know if you're going to see those fruits right away.
If you want my honest take, I'm actually the guy that I will take if my, gun to my head, I take Lazard, just because if you look at last year on a per game basis, he was the second target on the team. On a per game basis, he was getting the second most targets, and he also got hurt during, I believe he left during 2 different games. Yeah. So, if you really think about it, even though he left mid-game in some of those games, he was the second guy. Rodgers obviously has his guy. He's about to quit the team over, Jeff Janis or whoever got cut. So it's he picks his guys and then he sticks with them. So if I'm going to go with one of them, I'm going to go with Lazard. But I'm probably not going to take any.
Trigger warning to Jeff Janis. We have Kevin and we have Jake here. It's just Kevin. I actually wanted to. I want to hear what you have to say about all this.
So I meant to say Geronimo Allison.
God damn it!
we need to get more Jared Abbrederis in our collective consciousness here. But no, I'm going to take Lazard here, and that's probably because the dude, he's going to be on the field more often. I mean, he's an elite. He is an elite blocker at what he is. Our generation's Michael Jenkins. So that is basically Alan Lazard. I mean, the dude's 6 foot, 8,000. Like every other receiver on the Packers, aside from Amari Rodgers and Adams. But I'm not going to hold Amari Rodgers, to Jake's point. On MVS, we've played this game trying to put the carrot in front of us and try to find the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay, and between Geronimo Allison and MVS and Lazard and MVS, and now we're doing it again. We're going to introduce a rookie. I mean, I'm not going to play that game. I'd rather take a shot on, maybe more upside. We've seen that he's not going to target the wide receiver 2. He's going to hyper target the 1, but nobody has really emerged. So, at some point you just have to kind of wipe your hands clean of these guys. So MVS, I'll take you in best ball. Lazard late, sure. If I don't have to put you in my lineup and, hope I get a 5 for, 80 and a touchdown instead of playing MVS and he drops, 3 passes and ends up with 1 for 3. I don't want to have to go through that headache. So I'm going to take Lazard knowing he's going to be on the field. If I, gun to my head, if I have to take one of these receivers.
Let's be honest, Kevin, this is the round where you're taking your RB1 anyways in redraft, so you're not really focusing on these guys.
This is Ramondre Stevenson season.
Yeah,
oh
there you go.
My God, Jumanji Stevenson.
And what
Kevin
system do they play?
Dude,
Is that the Hufflepuff Gryffindor system they doing?
Gerhard Perkins system, Kevin. I don't like you disrespecting my organization like that.
Listen to it again.
If Charlie Weiss were here right now, he'd kick your ass. All right.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see him try. I can't run, but I can probably outrun him.
I hope so. Romeo Crennel. Don't get in between them. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my Lord! Let's get in. We're at the 1 hour 15 mark. Let's hit up the Minnesota Vikings here. But if you're still with us on Lightning Round, thank you so much. I am Kevin Tompkins, Mr. Gary Hatta, who is embarrassed to be here. Clearly, Mr. Andrew Cooper, and he's preaching, Mr. Jake Trowbridge. Let's go to the Minnesota Vikings here. Good God, we are the ghost ship. We are the Greyjoy fleet, just sitting out in the middle of the ocean. Right now,
just randomly shooting a dragon as if they can't see that there's an entire fleet behind a rock.
That's us.
We had a podcast once. It was a fun time.
I went down an angry Game of Thrones Reddit rabbit hole of people just being pissed off about the last season, and God, it just at this point it's a meme of sadness.
Speaking of sadness,
be careful on Reddit.
Yeah, that's true. He might get banned again. So as a timing and rhythm passer, Kirk Cousins threw for 35 touchdowns last season. He has a condensed target tree with Jefferson and Thielen, both 2 borderline elite talents at wide receiver. So Kirk Cousins finished as QB 11 last year. Yeah, he's not sexy, but he puts up stats, gets the job done. He threw, I think, 13 interceptions, but I'm fine with that. Why do we continually devalue Kirk Cousins in fantasy?
Because we could put Justin Fields at QB 15.
Wow. That was a shot across the bow.
Oh my God.
Would you rather have Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields?
The murder per YouTube standards practices, by the way.
I use Kevin's rankings, man. Like Kevin's rankings are like my default too. So I have to pick at them to make sure that they.
Dude, you're supposed to just say karate. You're not supposed to actually murder.
Just double crane kicked him in the middle of his broadcast.
Yeah.
Would you rather have Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields? I'm asking you.
You talking to me?
I'm asking. Well, no one else but Justin Fields.
No one wants to answer.
I'm asking you, Kevin. Would you rather have Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields?
I'll answer.
No. I actually want Kevin to answer.
Fine.
I was thinking about this as soon as he said that earlier.
Jeez,
you're a jerk,
but Gary.
I would rather have. I mean, okay, fine. I'm going to answer my own question. I would rather have Justin Fields. There,
Okay.
are you happy? But I think
yeah.
Kirk Cousins certainly has a place on rosters and in starting lineups as a matchup dependent, fringe QB1. I think he's perfect for that.
I don't even know if I disagree. It's still. I'm not even trying to like call a shot here.
Come on, Mr. America. We'll keep bringing him on here. By the way, Gary is now a U.S. citizen, by the way, and that's a true story.
I'll give you the lamest, but also 1,000% true answer. That if it's a 2-quarterback or superflex league, I need guys as my second quarterback who are going to actually play. So I'll take Kirk Cousins in that format. If I'm in a 1-quarterback league, by the time Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins are going off the board, I already have a quarterback, right? I've already taken. Even if I waited at quarterback, I've already taken Matt Stafford, and now I'm just taking. If I'm gonna take another quarterback, I want the highest upside possible, so I take Justin Fields. So that's where I'm at. I'm not taking what 1-quarterback league are you drafting Kirk Cousins? You know what I mean? 17 team leagues.
Maybe the Kings Classic, and 14 team leagues potentially.
I was so ready to be on board with that because that was going to be my default answer. It's like, aren't we really talking about safety versus upside when we're looking at these kind of quarterbacks that you want? And yes, it is league dependent, and yes, it is roster dependent, and all of that. And I was about to say that, and then I said quarterback 11 seems really high. And then I went back through the previous few years. I was like, oh, and then he was quarterback 15 before that, and then he was quarterback 12 before that. So Kirk Cousins all of a sudden actually does have this upside that we're kind of chasing with the new hotness, but it's actually been there all along. And now I just feel like maybe I'm the asshole that is undervaluing Kirk Cousins every single year. And maybe when we thought about Phillip Rivers in his prime, we never said Phillip Rivers has upside for days. We never did, but he was always a top 12 quarterback. Well, isn't that upside then? I mean, yeah, he doesn't have the QB1 upside. I guess to your point, like if you're chasing that with Justin Fields or some of those guys, then cool. Or a Jalen Hurts, for example. If you think he's going to finish top 3, I don't think any of us can sit here and think that Kirk Cousins is going to finish top 3 in the NFL this year for fantasy. But is it very realistic that he finishes as a QB1 again? Yeah, totally. So you have to define what upside means, I think, and then go from there with these guys.
I mean, the crazy thing about his stats the last few years, and when you look at his finishes and stuff, like let's say in some crazy world, you were able to take the Falcons and like what they do over there, which is just kind of panic throw the ball. And like you were able to give Kirk Cousins 684 attempts like they had in 2019, the Falcons. Like, I think, dude, the year before last, he threw like 440 passes or something ridiculously low. And I think last year was just over 500. So, like, if you were able to somehow give him those targets, or attempts, he could be a top 3 quarterback. I mean, as long as they have Dalvin Cook in that offense, and probably, honestly, Alexander Madison even, then that's not going to happen. But, I mean, like, when you look at it, it's crazy when you look at it and be like, okay, this dude is like, over the last 3 years, he's like 5th in yards, but he's like, 20th in attempts. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because their rushing game is so good that they're able to Kev, here it goes. That they're able to run play action and pull your pants down by throwing the deep ball there. I had to say it at least once per episode. Sorry, Jake, I forgot to say I'm contractually obligated to also say that phrase once per episode. Use promo code Lightning Round. But anyway, basically what I'm saying is that if for some reason they were to get in this world where they're just throwing the ball a lot more than they were, like not even 600 attempts, which isn't even that crazy, but like 550, 575, now all of a sudden Kirk Cousins is QB 6 or 7 or 8 if he just does what he does, but on a higher volume.
I completely agree. I mean, I feel like this is a terrible analysis in this comparison in that he's never going to finish as QB1, but like I think it was 2019 when Tyreek Hill was like up and down every week. His like away games, he was like the best in the NFL, and his home games were like 3 for 8. And Kirk 2 years ago, 20 touchdowns, but then last year we think that he was terrible. It's because, he 2-0 for touchdowns, 2-0, 3-1, 2, 3-1, and then he went on a tear, but then 1-2-3. Like, so he had just these really down games that you do not expect from somebody that you're going to be taking as a QB1, right? And so therefore he slips, and we want to go for upside, and we want to figure out the rushing quarterback and all the sexiest stuff. But like, if they're, I can't even think who the name of him right now, but if their wide receiver 3 comes on, or if Irv Smith comes on, and they do start to throw more, as Coop says, they already have 2.
Oh, well, we have some technical. Oh, we're getting him back, I think. Oh, Gary, can't hear you. You're muted. You got no microphone. Oh,
hold on. I want to finish what his sentence was going to be. So he was about to say they have 2, right? And that could have been any number of things. I like to think that he was about to say they have 2 very comfortable reasons why they're not going to finish at the top of the NFC North. And number 1 was Kirk Cousins. And then number 2 was Kirk Cousins. Because I really want to dog on him after saying so many nice things about him just a few minutes ago.
yeah, we just need to put that graphic up with Thielen yelling at Cousins on the sideline just in perpetuity. Just there. That should be like the background, or like the screen cover. It should be that. Yeah, let's. We have talked about Kirk Cousins for far too long. Let's talk about Dalvin Cook. So Dalvin Cook is RB2. Does that feel good for you considering everything else involving those high-end running backs? We're talking about Saquon Barkley's ankle issue, which he maybe worked in the beginning of the season. Derrick Henry's lack of receiving work, plus the really, really high volume that he's got in the last couple seasons. Maybe, historically we've seen running backs maybe start to break down a little bit. And then Alvin Kamara with his quarterback uncertainty. So after CMC, are you good with Dalvin Cook as running back 2?
Yeah, he's for sure locked in to be my running back 2 right now. And I'm not giving it a second thought. He's the guy who was running back 2 last year on only 14 games. And health is what it is. I don't think anybody's ever going to look at Dalvin Cook and be like, here's a guy I'm going to bank on for all 16 or now 17 games. And you don't have to. But when he plays, you're very happy. And when he doesn't play, guess what? You don't have to start him in your lineup, so you're not losing out on that many points. You can just have somebody else be into that spot for you. It's a cheat code, I know. But Dalvin Cook, even without targets, because he's one of these guys, the elite running backs, they all get their targets, and they all get 80-ish targets. And he's never even really been that guy, or has he had to? He's kind of like a better Nick Chubb, quite frankly. And he does it with fewer touchdowns in general, I think. So I just don't see a safer play, injuries be damned, than Dalvin Cook right now. So, yeah, it is CMC and then him very close together.
I'm going to say something. Honestly, it's okay. So this one's actually not a joke. But I'm not a big film guy. Like, I'm just never really one to go in and be like, okay, this is what I'm seeing. This
right in the tape.
Right, yeah, it's like with the quarterback, he's got his left foot back too far. That's when it's a run or whatever. I'm never that kind of guy. But with Dalvin Cook, I have seen a number of clips where what you see from him is that he understands the blocking so well. And you used to see this from Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers, is that when he knows he can get through the first layer of guys, he's seeing the second layer of guys and setting those guys up to get smoked. So you see a number of clips where he comes over to the left and he's like, it's great blocking, tremendous blocking, and he can see it. So he's like, oh, I'm going to keep going left. And you're like, why is he going left? And then you watch the safeties come over and then he just goes right. And they run into blocks and he sets them up to get he's seeing things that are at the second level. That's what creates those monster plays. It's the difference between what Zeke was doing last year in McCarthy's offense, which he doesn't know well, where he's kind of, he's getting through, but kind of running into people's backs a little bit. He didn't have his block. He didn't have his blockers. It's like when you look at Dalvin, there's a great, this is how much I'm not a film guy, but if you type in Dalvin Cook highlights, the first one that comes up from last year, the second run against the Falcons, it's he absolutely sets up this one defensive back where the guy literally turns around as if he had got like shake and baked by Jamal Crawford. Like it is like, and the guy just, but it's because Dalvin set it up that way, and that's the kind of thing where that's what separates the super elite guys from the guys that just plug into things and do whatever. Like he's really, he understands that offense, and that's what, to me, I'm like, when I see that, I'm like, dude, this guy is he's like super soaking some of these guys.
Yeah, we don't need film grinder Coop. I mean, nobody needs that.
I mean, dude, that was a take.
Just grind the blurbs before the paywall on the Athletic.
Clip the part of that where I said just Google Dalvin Cook highlights.
Yeah.
And then make it the intro to every future podcast from now until eternity.
You know what? That's a good idea. I was actually thinking about doing like an opening, like just with a bunch of clips. That's going to be on there. I'm going to do that. Gonna need some help from
Anthony Miller.
That's karate. That's so the opposite of one of my takes, though, because I'm such a numbers, snap counts, who's playing slot or whatever guy. But every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch some football. And dude, like that guy does. He is like he's pulling a sneaky on some guys.
He's so good.
Do not underestimate the sneakiness, sir. Yeah, so let's round out with the Minnesota Vikings pass catchers. So we know Justin Jefferson is a stud. Apparently people hate Adam Thielen. Regression. Oh my God, we could talk about that one for at least an hour. I know I can. I am still very much in on Thielen. I am contractually obligated to be pro Thielen. He lives about 30 minutes that way for me at Detroit Lakes. So I can't really talk. But is Tyler Conklin the Malcolm Brown of tight ends when it comes to Irv Smith?
God, I hate everything about that analogy. If you could distill into one sentence everything that I hate about the English language, I think you just nailed it word by word. By the way, my goodness,
it like hurt my brain.
Oh my goodness! First of all, I just want to put out there.
I love you too, Jake.
Don't
run away from your feelings.
I'm out on Irv Smith, Kevin, and that's I think my number one issue.
So am I.
Is like he doesn't have the accolades to be able to be that part of the analogy, because he would need to have done something by this point to be that part of the analogy. And I don't think that, one, that he has, and two, that Kyle Rudolph being gone is going to be this magical fix for him. I try not to be this way about almost all players, but I am with Irv Smith. I will believe it when I see it. Normally you have to do that projection. Like that's how you lose edge, is by saying that for all players. But like Irv Smith, no. Tyler Conklin, though, to your point, I guess, yeah, he could get a handful of touchdowns. And wouldn't that be something?
Wouldn't that be nifty?
Dude, Tyler Conklin's like the dude that you would have bring out water to Nick Boyle. Like he's not scoring.
You mean Eli?
Like, dude, first, I mean, like we were talking about like the magic appearance of targets. Like there's not nearly enough targets for Irv Smith even. Like I'm with you on that. I'm off the Irv Smith wagon, because when you look at last year, Thielen is playing a 96% snap share, 100% route participation, getting a 25% target share, and he barely crest 100 targets. You know what I mean? When we talk about elite tight ends, pretty much every top 5 tight end going back to Randy McMichael in 2003 has had 90 targets or 10 plus touchdowns. So the only one that didn't was last year, Mark Andrews with 88 targets. He only played 14 games because he got COVID. You know what I mean? It's like that's COVID out the window. That the stat holds up. So Irv Smith, like there's no world where Justin Jefferson gets his absurd target share and Adam Thielen gets his normal target share or even reduced target share, and Irv Smith manages to get that many targets. So that's why for me, I'm right with you, Jake. Like Irv Smith, he hasn't earned the targets. And they're not even there. You know what I mean? They're not even there for him to take. So, but the same thing with Tyler Conklin. It's like Tyler Conklin is going to step into Kyle Rudolph's role, which is a role that is just ghastly for fantasy football. So I'm super in on Jefferson and Thielen at their ADP, and Dalvin Cook, and I'm just crazy out on everybody else, including Chad Beebe and Amir Smith-Marset, and put them all in a big, gross bucket of Vikings don't need them.
Justin Jefferson is going wide receiver 7. You are in on that ADP.
Yeah, no.
Like,
okay, I'm not. Okay, so I'm not just.
It's high, man.
If he's at the, I mean, that's the thing. Is like I'm just such a RB guy, you know, that if all the RBs go and then all the wide receiver, like if I can get him at that, like if I took CMC in the first round and it gets all back to the swing and all my RBs I like go and I'm just going bang bang wide receivers, I will take Justin Jefferson. I mean, the guy's nice.
That's the thing. It's like you do have to look at your draft process and roster construction with most of these guys in the top 10 for wide receivers. Like, I mean, Kevin, you're probably going to be very comfortable taking one of your favorites here because of your predisposition towards fading running backs. That's going to be natural if you're, or maybe you would rather have a tight end or whatever, you know, in one of those first rounds. But like for me, as somebody who does not, because I appreciate the depth at wide receiver, I'm not taking these top 10 guys in general. But his ADP does not actually seem as crazy to me as I think it might to you guys, is because, yes, we saw him do it last year as a rookie, and that's only one reason. But I also thought that we saw a pretty substantial shift about halfway through the season, or a little bit less than that, of him becoming the guy. I'm fading Adam Thielen actually at his ADP, even at wide receiver 19. I'm not comfortable with that because I think you're getting him close to his ceiling in this Minnesota offense for this year. So I am going to be out on Adam Thielen, and I'm not going to draft Justin Jefferson, but I get the appeal there.
Let me just real quick add in that on Underdog, he's wide receiver 23. And also, if you're on Underdog or if you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, I would use promo code Lightning to sign up.
I also would.
Yeah, you get $25 off. The thing about the focal point shift to Justin Jefferson is that you saw it with, and I know we're running late here, but you saw it with the first game. Jair Alexander was covering Adam Thielen. The second game, he covered Justin Jefferson, and he kind of smothered Justin Jefferson. I know Dalvin ran for like 4 touchdowns or whatever, but like Jefferson only had 1 catch for 12 yards against Alexander. And also,
that's Jair, baby. Jair does that to everybody.
Jair Island, baby.
Am I right, Kev?
He's a nasty. Okay, we'll let you boys have it. Yeah. Go ahead, Gary. You're wearing a Packers jersey. Say something nice about Jair Alexander, you know?
Sorry, Coop. It's one of the very few moments I got to shine my Green Bay light, and I had to do it.
That's why we brought you on here for that. You know what I mean? Here, somebody throw some preaches up on the screen. But anyway, what I want to say is Carlton Davis, when he played the Bucks, Carlton Davis also held him to 1 catch for 5 yards. So something to think about when the spotlight is on you. All those mean guys are on you. And the very first game of the year, I think you guys are playing a good corner, Chidobe Awuzie.
Yeah, the Cheeto guy. And once again, Kirk Cousins was willing to shy away from Chidobe. Chidobe was covering both Thielen and Jefferson. Chidobe only got 2 balls thrown at him all day, 1 to Jefferson, 1 to Thielen, and I think only one of them was caught. Jefferson caught 1. So, like, it's kind of like the Jameis Winston corollary with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like when Lattimore and James Bradbury were covering Evans, Winston was willing to be like, forget you. You know what I mean? So I think Cousins is the kind of guy that at times will do that. So it does concern me that teams might be like, let's take Jefferson away, you know, but beyond that, I mean, we just saw him be an absolute force. So it's a matter of it's splitting hairs, but that's where I'm at. Adam Thielen, take him, ADP, worth it.
I mean, I think it just comes down to the relative who's going around them, because the wide receivers, it's like, well, A.J. Brown's going after J.J. Like, I can see that. Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, they're all going after. DK Metcalf's going before Justin Jefferson, and I actually think I like Justin Jefferson more than DK Metcalf. But to me, like that's like a running back spot, because like Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, Joe Mixon, if that's what you for some reason like, you know, like it's really difficult, and I think it is very roster construction based, because I would much rather have Adam Thielen than Justin Jefferson at their cost. They are not correct comps again, as I've said several times, but I can't get Juju out of my head. Like, you have these guys that just, they're studs, they are stars, not being the number one. And then all of a sudden they get Jair, they start to get these other guys, and things kind of start to go awry a little bit. And they're still fantastic, but like where you are trying to take them, where you are taking them ends up being an overshot as to where they finish. Jake said it earlier, you said, I will believe it when I see it with Irv. I unfortunately will believe it when I see it a second time with a rookie in Justin Jefferson, because as I have learned, you break records for a reason, because no one's ever done it. But CMC, Michael Thomas, and Kittle all came crashing back down to earth after their 2019 seasons.
Yeah, I mean,
Kevin, you're muted.
You're muted.
Son of a bitch, Kev. I'll just end it with this. Remember when we all thought Justin Jefferson was a slot guy?
Oops.
Whoops. And we were all taking him at like 112 in rookie drafts last year, and the bargain of the century. And I was taking like Jalen Reagor and like Love and Life. Oh, that was a fun time.
It's tough.
Tough in the streets.
Great. Now
I can't tell if Coop's muted or
I was
not.
muted. Yeah, I was saying the day that CeeDee Lamb becomes the guy that's in two wide receiver sets instead of just being the slot guy that comes out, which he was last year, is the day that he has like the Godwin like explosion. You know what I mean? Like, he only played 64% of snaps last year. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's next year, but I believe it's going to happen at some point. But it is important to play those in the two wide sets. So I fucked up with Jefferson too, because I thought he was going to be a slot guy. No.
Well, I will say that this was a roundabout way. We went through a lot of avenues, a lot of streets, but we did get the NFC North in there, talking about the Bills. Well, we're not talking about the Bills, are we?
Bills.
Wow, almost, Kevin. Good job. We'll edit that in post. Talking about the Bears, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers. Jake, I know we ran long, my friend. Thank you so much for hopping on with us to talk this great division that the Packers are going to win in 2021. For those still hanging on with us here, tell them where we can find you.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Jake Trowbridge, because that's my name, and I didn't have any other creative input into it. And then I'm hosting the podcast. I'm over there on DTFF. I'm over there on Ball Blast. So check those out too.
Yeah, so we can all agree as we hit the hour and 45-minute mark that Jake is banned from this podcast, though, right? Like,
I just don't know if you guys saw it.
I did. I gotta be on a flight. I gotta get up at 4:30 and fly to Portland, Oregon tomorrow. And obviously, Jake decides to keep us here until midnight. Unbelievable.
That's what I do.
And to spare is Adam Thielen.
Unbelievable,
I love it.
dude.
All right, we're gonna
Get
hop
out of
off again for Gary, for Andrew, for Jake. I'm Kevin Tompkins. We will see you next week with another divisional preview. Take care.